More questions than answers. Among the countless ways to describe Adventure Time, that phrase stands out most for me in regards to the finale of Season 7. That can very well extend to Season 7 as a whole, as there's definitely far more unanswered questions and unfinished plotlines than there have ever been before. And after my first viewing of this action-packed two-part finale, overwhelming was the first concrete feeling I had. Susan Strawn is in the title card of Preboot, so of course we should expect her as a returning character, but I did not expect to see her literally within seconds of Preboot starting, and it got me so pumped, because while it was great to see her perform in Music Hole, having her included in an actual adventure is a whole other ballgame. And then, shortly after, Tiffany! Tiffany returns! And from the sound of it, seems he was rescued by Dr. Gross from the intestines of the Worm Queen that had consumed him many episodes ago.
I mean, I came straight from a Worm Queen's intestines, so I'm biased.
I'm gonna hedge my bet that Tiffany was rescued accidentally rather than intentionally, and was cyberized since he was of use to Dr. Gross, probably to locate further ideal subjects to cyberize, such as our trio that Dr. Gross somehow acquired surveillance data on. Dr. Gross is the final new character squished into Season 7, whose design I absolutely love, both with and without the STEM suit, and especially so when she's got those telescopic spider legs activated. The animals in her menagerie, though, didn't really do it for me in terms of design. They were goofy and somewhat fun, but lacked that wow factor that they were supposed to pack. I mean, a large part of Dr. Gross's song was about her creations, but my reactions to them can most succinctly be summarized with meh. They also just looked really messy visually once their mods were activated. But those wolflards, though, kudos on the wolflards. So we could all probably presume Dr. Gross was nefarious from the very moment she was caught off guard, and Susan's perturbed expressions during the song just seal the deal on that assumption. She's a mad scientist dead set on dragging humans into a so-called golden age via heavy-duty augmentation. Forced heavy-duty augmentation. The line of dialogue that reveals most about her backstory has got to be this.
They used to ask me that all the time back at the island. What are you doing, Dr. Gross? You'll never get away with this!
So there's a place called the Island where humans continue to exist, and it seems Dr. Gross had been either banished or forced from it for modifying people against their will. Now in the present, Dr. Gross is building a hybrid army in hopes of taking control of the island and completing her goals. For me, this paints a narrative that the humans we see sail off in the Stakes miniseries managed to find a landmass to settle, and over time became heavily reliant on technology to survive. If we are to believe Martin's story back in The Visitor, seems like Martin set off from the island on a boat with Finn's mom who was pregnant, and eventually abandoned Finn who somehow ended up in the Land of Oo. Guess we'll see how accurate my hypothesis is when this plotline is continued in the remaining 2 seasons of the show. Seeing as how Finn's mom was on the boat along with Martin, something tells me she wouldn't be back at the island if Finn does end up traveling there in future seasons, but we may learn why her and Martin left. When I heard the name, The Island, I couldn't help but think of the Adventure Time ending theme since it is called Island Song, but there's no clear connection to be made between the two yet as I see it. So, who or what is Susan Strawn?
Wait! Aren't you curious about how I know you?
Why yes, I would love to know that, along with a myriad of other questions, but clearly we won't get a clear-cut answer until next season. But this episode does provide enough clues that I think I can make a decent hypothesis. Susan should still have biological components since Dr. Gross expected the paralyzing candy to work on her after finding out her identity, so I'm going to have to assume she's a cyborg, which was actually my guess back in Dark Purple, where it was first revealed she had a metallic doohickey on her noggin. When activated, she states her name to be
Seeker XJ77 Strong.
And her goal is to seek a target, restrain them, and bring them to the extraction point so they could be returned to
Our home.
That our home line means that the targets she seeks are other humans. Susan Strawn is a modified human who serves as a tool to find humans across the planet and bring them back to the human colony established on the island. So how was Susan able to have clearance in Dr. Gross's lab and know exactly how to navigate out of it? My hypothesis is that Dr. Gross is responsible for Susan's existence. Dr. Gross created these so-called Seekers before she was forced off the island to collect all the humans left scattered about the planet. Perhaps this was even sanctioned by the colony back then. Maybe these Seekers were created in the same lab she has now. Perhaps it was altered to be a mobile drill so she could escape the island and still retain her tech when other humans started turning against her. So when she was interrupted...
Wait! You're one of...
Maybe she was going to say, one of my creations, or something along those lines. The very obvious question, if my hypothesis is correct, is why did Dr. Gross not recognize Susan? Well, it's not exactly like she values life that much, so it's possible she simply forgot about Susan's physical appearance. Yeah, I'm not quite satisfied with that answer either, but otherwise I'm not sure why Susan would know the layout of the lab and have access to it. The speculative discussion aside for now, let's get back to the action continuing as Susan absorbs the Gumball Guardian Blast and executes Phase 2, where she basically hulks out. And then one-sidedly obliterates Rattleballs in a scene that was honestly quite horrific. The recurring joke did manage to lighten the mood a bit though.
Yabba dabba dabba dabba.
So what of the Rattleball saga from here? Will PB decide to repair him? Or was this one of multiple Rattleballs, since back in Jake the Brick we saw him trying to construct others? Maybe this wasn't the Rattleballs we were first introduced to, hence his one-sided defeat. More questions to look forward to next season. And speaking of what to look forward to next season, holy shit, that ending! And can I just say, called it! Let me play a clip from my review of I Am a Sword.
But knowing that Finn's sword is actually Finn, it is a person, this sword might transform from a sword into an actual new character for all we know.
Yep, this eldritch-like spirit or presence that dwells within the grass sword fused with Finn's sword, and we get this thing. The green-tinted title card for Reboot of Finn in a Cocoon was alluding to this scene where the metamorphosis occurs. Damn, am I an eager beaver to find out what the hell the intentions and motivations of Grassfin, or whatever we're supposed to call this guy, are gonna be. And it must be said that we have Finn armless yet again. I wonder how long it's gonna last this time. I would be very impressed if it stays permanent for the rest of the show. I'm really curious what's gonna happen because I doubt the AT crew would just perform a retread on such an important issue. It's curious that Finn has no right arm, while Tiffany's bionic arm was his left. But whether this detail is actually important or not is yet another thing only time will tell. I also gotta wonder, did Tiffany somehow lose his arm inside the intestine of the Worm Queen, or did he choose to sacrifice it to have a bionic one instead? Speaking of Tiffany, the kid's gotta be alive. No way is this the last we've seen of Tiffany. Tiffany can survive anything. I have two criticisms for both Preboot and Reboot, and they are of the somewhat personal variety. I felt that the pacing was awkward and the humor wasn't quite hitting. The pacing just wouldn't quite click for me, and often somehow managed to simultaneously feel like it was both going too fast, yet progressing in a clunky manner. The moment-to-moment flow lacked fluidity in my opinion. This was most prominent on my first watch of the episode though. On repeated viewings, it wasn't as distracting of an issue. As for the humor, it was by no means bad, and there were moments I certainly enjoyed.
I was like a crazed vermilion crab, limping along the sea floor.
But overall, it wasn't on par with what I expect from Adventure Time. These issues did not detract from this busy finale being a blast, though. I was mesmerized by the experience the whole way through and very interested in the lore and mythos that was being fleshed out. When my first viewing of the episodes finished, I immediately wanted to rewatch them again. Preboot and Reboot don't place them on my personal favorite episodes of Season 7, but they certainly were good episodes, and they made me so pumped for Season 8. As most of you probably know, Adventure Time is set to end in 2018, with the 9th season being its last. According to the creators, Preboot and Reboot mark a pivotal moment in the transition toward the ending. According to Tom Herpich, these episodes are essentially the start of a rolling snowball that will take us to the end. I can certainly see why the Season 7 finale was described this way, and I am extremely enthusiastic to see how the snowball continues to grow as we roll ever forward.